Husband just got promoted at corporate job and demands that we open the marriage because he wants to be free of pressure. But within a month of his promotion he's in this big scandal and being fired by his management for workplace indecency, so now he wants to close the marriage and become a stay-at-home husband. His reaction completely changed when I told him I have different plans for him. The past month has been very difficult for me. I have no idea where to even begin. My husband, James, and I have been having a very rough patch, and I think it's come to a point of no return. It all started a couple of months ago after we celebrated our second anniversary together. We had been together for almost 5 years, married for 2, and I thought it would be the perfect time to start thinking about kids. I suggested it to him, and he told me that he was not ready yet, but that's what he said last year as well, and he knows that I really want kids. He's known it forever. We discussed it even before we got serious about each other. So I didn't want to pressure him, but I did get a little upset with him, and we had a bit of an argument. I didn't think it was a big deal, but clearly, he did, because after that, even though I tried to make it up to him, it just never worked. He became very distant and started spending more time at work and less time at home, and no matter how much effort I put in, he just never seemed to care or even take note of it. Last month, I decided to talk to him about it because it was getting too much for me to handle. And that's when he told me that I was pressuring him too much, that he couldn't deal with this, and that he wanted to open up our marriage because just the previous week, he had been offered a promotion, and it meant that he would have to spend even more time at work. But he hadn't told me about it because he wasn't sure of how I would react. But now, he just couldn't deal with this kind of pressure anymore. He needed to focus on his career, and that's why he wanted me to agree to an open marriage, because he did not want me to restrict myself from anything on his account since he would feel really guilty about it, and he doesn't want that right now. I was shocked. I never thought something like this would happen, and I tried to talk him out of it. But the most I could get him to agree to was that we could take a few months apart, reevaluate our relationship, and then see what we wanted from each other. I didn't want that, but that was all I could get him to agree to, so since then, he has been staying separately. I've tried to speak to him several times over the course of the past few weeks, but he hasn't responded and has only told me that he needs time to think about what he wants. But recently, all that changed, and he himself came to me a couple of days ago, and surprisingly, he was actually apologetic about everything, which was strange because even up until a couple of days ago, he was still ignoring me. But out of the blue, he just showed up at our house a couple of days ago with all his stuff and told me that he had come back for good. He told me that he had learned his lesson. He knew that he had made a huge mistake and that he had decided to quit his job and become a stay-at-home husband, and he was even ready to commit to becoming a father now. I had no idea what was going on, but I was sure that something must have happened to lead to the change of heart, because he's not the kind of person who can just give up on his career like that. So I decided to go digging. And after speaking to a couple of his co-workers on social media, I was able to find out what exactly had gone wrong. Basically, he was caught up in one of the biggest scandals in his company. Somebody had leaked security footage of his boss's office, and pretty much everybody who worked there had seen the two of them going at it in her office after hours. And in true blue corporate fashion, the boss had denied having any sort of long-term relationship with him despite being with him for the past year, and with the help of connections, had managed to get out unscathed. She had an uncle on the board, so she was just transferred to another branch without much of a fuss. And because they wanted to cover everything up, they had even offered to let James go after he signed an NDA and with a bit of severance pay that would help him out for the next few months. But he refused to take it. He wanted to negotiate a higher payout, and that got him in trouble. Because after that, the company tried to sue him, and he knew that the company had a team of lawyers who were nothing short of sharks, who would shred him to bits, and he would probably end up losing everything that he had earned trying to fight this battle, plus the public mudslinging that would come with a trial. So he decided to accept the payout and leave, but by then, they had already lowered the amount significantly, and he lost out on a ton of money. This had happened in the last 3.5 weeks, and I realized that this was probably why he came back to me. I was very hurt. And so yesterday, after confirming everything with a bunch of his co-workers, I decided to sit him down and confront him. So far, even though I had my doubts, I had been allowing him to stay with me. But when I brought this up with him yesterday, he started looking very scared and told me that I was misunderstanding the situation, and that was all that I needed to know. The fact that all of this had happened was enough for me to tell him that I did not want him back and that he needed to get out right away. He tried to tell me that I had got it all wrong, that apparently, he had been used and lied to by his boss. But the fact that all of this had happened, he hadn't even told me anything about it, and ultimately, it was still cheating no matter what he had been told, and it was not something I could forgive. He cried a lot, and he put up a good fight, but I just kept asking him to leave, and he finally did go away. I was hurt. I cried myself to sleep last night, and then today, in the morning, my in-laws called me up to say that this was the last thing that their son needed after he had been through so much. They are backing up his story that he had been lied to by his boss and given false hopes by her, and that's why he had done all of this. I tried to tell them that it didn't matter because it was still cheating. He was a part of this willingly, but they called me heartless for kicking him out and refusing to be supportive of him at this time. And now I'm wondering if I did the right thing or not because this seems very complicated. And I feel very uneasy about it. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out of the house after I found out that he had been cheating on me with his boss? Edit, okay. So here are a few facts for anyone who's still confused. 1. He did all of this willingly. He himself had confessed to it. He has told me that it started off because his boss would flirt with him, and he fell for it. That itself means that it was all consensual on both ends from beginning to end. There is no question about that. And had it been a case of the opposite, I definitely would have been supportive of him. 2. I don't even know if he was telling me the truth about the promotion or if it was just a lie to get me off his back so he could move out and stay independently without my presence bothering him constantly. He told me that his boss had been promising him that she would leave her husband soon, and after that, the two of them would get married. Not only that, but she would also make sure that he got promoted over the other employees in his department, and that he would have a significant raise soon enough. These were the promises that he fell for, and I don't understand why he would go to such extents for a promotion and raise. I can understand being ambitious, but this was all just really wrong and horrible. Anyway, this is all I know, and I hope this clears up any doubts that people have about all this. Update 1. Hey. Thank you, everyone, for all the support. All the comments have been really helpful and have helped me make sense of the situation because all along, I've been feeling really lost and confused. I was having second thoughts about literally everything that I've done so far. But I read the comments here, I spoke to my parents, and I came to the conclusion that I had done exactly what needed to be done. After all, nothing changes the fact that he could have chosen not to cheat, but he did. He chose actively to cheat on me, ruin our marriage, and lie to me about literally everything, and that's not something that I can just move past, and it's not something that I want to move past either. I have already spoken to a lawyer. We are filing for divorce, and beyond this, I just want nothing to do with him. But I don't think he and his parents are ready to accept that because even though it's been a couple of days since I kicked him out, they have not stopped trying to contact me. I blocked their original phone numbers and accounts on social media, but then they started using burner phones and accounts. They've even set their relatives after me, trying to convince me that I'm doing both of us a huge disservice by choosing to get divorced. They keep bringing up the fact that we have been together for so long that we deserve to give our marriage a second chance and that we can work things out by talking to each other, going to a marriage counselor, and just doing something about this apart from getting divorced. I don't understand why they expect me to do something about it, especially when it was James who cheated. I was perfectly fine with staying married to him, working on our marriage, and building a family with him. That's exactly what I had wanted for so long until I found out that he had cheated on me. And I think what I'm doing right now is perfectly reasonable. I'm not throwing away anything, least of all our years of being together. He is the one who threw it away first. I'm not going to be the person who digs it out of the trash and tries to save it. That is beneath my dignity, and I don't understand why I'm expected to do anything like this. Anyway, it doesn't matter what they do at this point. It's just going to be a minor inconvenience for me at most because I have made up my mind what I want to do, and that is get a divorce, move on with my life, and forget about all this. It's not going to be easy, I'm aware of that, but I'm going to do it because I really don't want anything to do with him anymore. He has disappointed me, disgusted me, and I can't even reconcile the person he is right now with the person I'd fallen in love with. Update 2. So today, James came over. It's been 6 days since my last update. I haven't had the time to post here because I've been trying to keep myself distracted. The process of filing for the divorce petition has been completed. He can expect to be served in a couple of days, and I thought that he would visit after that. But I was surprised to see him come over today. I've been working from home for the past couple of days because I need to sort myself out. I really can't bring myself to go to work right now. So he showed up in the afternoon, and since I was at home, I thought about whether I should pretend not to be there and let him go away on his own, but eventually, I decided to let him in because I wanted to talk to him, not because I wanted to sort things out with him, but just because I wanted to understand why he would do this to me. I know a lot of people would not agree with me here, but I felt like I just needed to talk to him one last time. So I let him in, and as soon as he was inside, he started crying and apologizing. But I told him right away that all the crying and stuff was not going to change my mind, and it's just going to make me more uneasy to talk to him. So I had to ask him to leave once again. I spoke to him pretty sternly, but I made it clear that he could either speak to me calmly, we could discuss things like normal people, or he could go away. After I said that, he decided to shut up, and then we sat down in the living room, and he started to tell me as normally as he could that he was sorry about everything that he had put me through and that he had not meant to hurt me. I found that very ironic because I don't understand what he was even expecting out of this. And I told him that if he didn't want to hurt me, he wouldn't have done any of this in the first place. But it's pointless talking about it now. I thought that he was going to fight that, but he just kept quiet for a few seconds and then went on to tell me that he could understand that I was very upset with him and I had every right to be angry, but he just needed one chance to explain everything to me because he had already lost everything. But he didn't want to let me go while I still believed that he was a terrible person. I already knew what he was going to tell me, but I tried to give him a chance. He started off by telling me that his boss had always had an eye on him ever since he started working there. Apparently, she had always flirted with him, but he had been ignoring her forever. However, recently, she started dropping hints that if he reciprocated, there would be good things in store for him, which is why he got tempted. Because at the end of the day, he was thinking about us. He told me that he believed that if he did this for us, it would make life easier for both of us, and even said that he was planning for the future because he knew I wanted to start a family. But at the same time, he also felt guilty about what he was doing because he knew it was not the right thing to do. He was taking the easier way out and felt bad about it, which is why he felt like he couldn't face me, and that's why he had decided to go away for a while until he found the courage to end all of this. And, apparently, he had been trying to end it for a while, but then the footage got leaked by somebody, and everything started going wrong for him. After he was done talking, I was a little confused because I already knew all of this. So I told him that I had been expecting a proper explanation, but I already knew all of this. And then he told me that this was what he wanted to say, and he thought that this was going to make me forgive him, telling me that he was thinking of us and our future while cheating on me was somehow supposed to make me feel better about it. It was so ridiculous that I actually ended up laughing. And I told him that for the past many days, I had been feeling terrible about everything that had happened, but now I could totally see that it happened for the best. If I had never found out, I probably would have regretted it when I eventually did. I told him that I was glad that the truth came out regardless of the way it happened because he's definitely not the kind of person who I want to start a family with anymore. I also told him that now that he had come over, he could collect his things once and for all and go away because I did not want to see him again, at least not until the divorce proceedings started. He tried to protest, but I told him that I just didn't want to talk to him anymore since I'd already given him a chance to explain because I wanted closure, and that had been my mistake, believing that he had something to say in his defense after everything. He started crying and telling me that he really believed that this was going to make me forgive him, and he insisted that he had been duped into cheating on me. And I honestly couldn't do anything but just roll my eyes because it was crazy how even now he couldn't understand that he couldn't be tricked into something like this. At the end of the day, it was still a personal choice. Once again, I had to remind him that if he started acting crazy, I would kick him out once again. And after a bit of argument, he started yelling at me and told me that I was heartless, and after everything that I had been through, he couldn't believe that even now I was not feeling sorry for him. So I told him that I had no intention of feeling sorry for him just because he was facing the consequences of his own actions. It was a bad thing that somebody had leaked the footage and he got into all the trouble, but his boss didn't. But even that had been a personal choice, and right now, I don't have the energy to feel sorry for somebody who has completely turned my world upside down. He called me a lot of names, cried a lot, and tried to get me to sympathize with him and stuff, but nothing worked. Eventually, I just told him that right now, he had the opportunity to collect his things because otherwise, if he came back later, I would not be letting him back in. Since the way he had behaved today, I could tell that he was not going to be an easy person to deal with. I didn't want to put myself through another episode of this, so I told him that this was his last chance to take everything that he had left. After a while, when he kept trying to fight with me and I did not respond, he finally started going to the other rooms and collecting his things. In an hour, he had packed a huge bag and was ready to leave. Even before he left, he looked at me and told me that I was making a huge mistake and that I was going to regret this in the future. So I told him that I already had enough regrets about him and I didn't mind another one. But all I needed for him to do right now was leave me alone because I was not going to forgive him and neither did he deserve my forgiveness. After that, after wasting almost 3 hours, he finally left. And honestly, I'm glad that I decided to give him a chance because now I don't have any doubts about my situation anymore. I am doing the right thing. I've got closure, and I don't even think I'm gonna miss him anymore. This is not even the person that I fell in love with, so why bother feeling upset about ending it with him? Anyway, I lost an entire day of work today, so that's probably the only regret I'll have. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since John came over and we last spoke. After that, I only focused on work and did not let anything distract me. I figured that whatever had happened with the divorce would have happened in due course, and there was no point worrying about it. Yesterday, I think he was served with the divorce papers, and today he decided to show up once again. Of course, this time I did not let him in and I pretended I wasn't even home. It might sound a little crazy, but I went to the bathroom and continued working silently. As he kept ringing the doorbell outside, after almost 15 minutes I guess he figured that I was not at home and left. I waited almost half an hour to come back out into the living room, and when I had made sure the coast was clear, I decided to open the door to check if anything was out of place. And that's when I discovered that he had left a sticky note on my door saying that I needed to unblock him and talk to him. So I took it off, crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. I wasn't gonna unblock him, and neither was I going to talk to him. But I should have realized that he was not going to give up so easily because about an hour later, he came back to my door again, and this time, unfortunately, I couldn't pretend that I wasn't at home because I had been on a work call in the living room and he heard it. I tried to ignore the doorbell ringing, but he just kept going at it, telling me that he knew I was at home and I couldn't pretend and ignore my way out of this. I got fed up after a while and I told him that I did not want to talk to him. And if he continued with this behavior, I would report him to the cops because he was becoming psychotic and hard to deal with. Even then, he didn't leave. He told me that he didn't care who I called, but I had to talk to him. And because we had been together for so long, this was the least that I could do for him now. I considered it for a moment, but then I remembered that I had already given him a chance last time, and he blew it. He definitely didn't have anything productive to say, so why should I waste my time again? So I decided to just call the cops instead of talking to him, and I guess he was trying to actively eavesdrop on what was going on inside because he heard the phone call too. I had been a little loud on purpose because I thought that hearing me report him to the cops would get him to leave, but instead, it only made him act crazier. He started screaming at me from outside the door, telling me that I was a horrible human being and stuff, calling me names again, but I wasn't scared a bit. He kept this up for as long as until the cops showed up. And then he was dragged off my property quite unceremoniously because he just refused to leave. He could have gone away dignified, but he decided to go away kicking and screaming. Anyway, afterward, I made a mental note that after this, if he tried to show up again, I would probably have to file for a restraining order against him because this was getting on my nerves now, and given his state of mind, there's no telling what he might do. I never did find out what he had come over to tell me and why he kept showing up so desperately, but I don't think it was worth my time anyway. So I don't have any regrets about it. Right now, I'm just hoping that everything with the divorce is resolved quickly so I can stop dealing with his craziness. Update 4, Hi. So it's been 2 weeks since my last update. And today, I finally heard back from John and his lawyer. In the meantime, there had been radio silence from that end, and I had found that very strange because after I called the cops, I was pretty sure that he was going to pull off something and I would have to file for a restraining order. I'd even spoken to my lawyer about the same, and we were prepared, but thankfully nothing happened. But then 2 weeks passed, and there was still no word from him, so I was beginning to feel a little confused. However, today, his parents showed up at my house along with his lawyer. The divorce papers had been signed, and they had only come to deliver it to me personally and speak to me on John's behalf. Initially, I was not really inclined towards opening the door, especially after everything that happened with John. So I told his parents to keep the papers outside and leave because I really didn't want to interact with them. But he told me that this was a very disrespectful thing to do, and he said that he could understand why I was upset because after everything that had gone wrong with John, I didn't want to risk this a second time. But he insisted they were slightly more stable than their son at this point, and I needed to be respectful because, ultimately, they are significantly older than me. I felt a little skeptical about it, but they sounded reasonable enough, so I figured I would just talk to them, give them what they wanted, and then they would go away. So I opened the door, they handed me the papers, and they told me that they had come here one last time to let me know how disappointed they were. They told me that John had been driven to the point of absolute misery and psychotic behavior after visiting me, and that's why he had been acting so crazy when he came by last. They wanted to apologize for that, but they also told me that it was ultimately my fault because if I had just forgiven him and decided to give him a second chance, things would have turned out differently for their son. Right now, his mental stability is as weak as a feather, and they think that it's my fault. They told me that John had said that after everything that had gone against him, he had always expected me to have his back, but even I had turned out to be exactly like the rest of them. And for that, he wanted to let me know that he never would be showing up again and he would definitely leave me alone like I wanted because it was clear that I had never loved him. And that's the message that his parents wanted to pass on to me, and I guess they expected some sort of breakdown, but I didn't even feel anything. I was actually just relieved that he had decided not to show up again and leave me alone and also agreed to all the terms of the petition without a fuss. They stood by for a couple of seconds more after finishing their big speech, probably waiting for a reaction. But when they didn't get any, they just turned around and walked away muttering. I don't care what they were saying under their breath because I'm just relieved that this is finally coming to an end now. I'm done. And that's all I had wanted, so I'm thankful.